My name is Ava. I am 22 years old. I was born in a small town in Bangladesh. My childhood was simple, filled with narrow streets, crowded markets, and the smell of fresh rice cooking in every house. Life was not always easy, but it was colorful. We had festivals, music, and stories told under the stars. But outside our little town, there was one word that carried magic: America. I heard about it everywhere. My teachers spoke about American universities as if they were castles of knowledge. My neighbors whispered about relatives who went there and sent back dollars. On television, I saw images of New York City, the shining skyscrapers, the busy yellow taxis, the glowing lights that turned night into day. Magazines showed smiling people, tall bridges, and streets where dreams seemed to walk freely. Everyone said the same thing. America is the land of dreams. If you go there, your life will be perfect. As a child, I believed it completely. I remember sitting on the roof of our small house during warm evenings, looking at the sky full of stars. I imagined myself walking down a big street in America, maybe Times Square, wearing stylish clothes and holding a cup of coffee. I imagined studying in a famous university, living in a modern apartment, and making friends from every corner of the world. In my heart, America was not just a country, it was paradise. So I began preparing for that paradise. I studied hard in school. I practiced English every single day. Sometimes when my friends went to sleep, I stayed awake with a small lamp on my desk, reading English books and repeating words softly to myself. My parents often told me, "Ava, don't push yourself too hard. Rest." But I couldn't stop. I felt like if I didn't try my best, my dream would slip away. Finally, after years of hard work, my chance came. I received a student visa to study in New York City. I still remember the day I left home. At the airport, my mother hugged me so tightly that I could feel her tears soaking my scarf. She whispered, "Stay safe, my daughter. Always remember who you are." My father, a quiet man who rarely showed emotions, placed a small folded letter in my hand. "Read this only when you feel lost," he said softly. "I promise them, I will be fine. I will make you proud." When the plane landed in New York, my heart beat faster than ever before. The airport was huge and crowded. People were speaking English everywhere, and I tried to catch every word. The air felt different, colder, sharper, fresher. As the taxi drove me to my rented apartment, I stared out of the window like a child seeing magic for the first time. The tall glass buildings touched the clouds. The glowing billboards looked like giant televisions. The streets were busy, full of people walking quickly, carrying coffee, talking on their phones. "This is it," I whispered to myself. "My new life begins now." At first, everything looked like a dream. My small room had only one bed, one desk, and a little cupboard, but the window showed me a slice of the city lights. I thought to myself, "This is more beautiful than anything I have ever seen." The first few weeks were exciting. I explored the streets. I tried foods I had never eaten before: hot dogs, bagels, pizza with cheese that stretched like elastic. I heard so many languages around me: Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, French. It felt like the whole world lived in this one city. At night, I stood by my window, looking at the shining buildings. The city never seemed to sleep. I thought, I made it. I am finally living my dream. But slowly, reality began to whisper. The first challenge was money. Back home, people told me New York was expensive, but I had no idea how expensive. The rent for my tiny room was more than my father's monthly salary. The grocery store shocked me. The price of vegetables, milk, even bread felt impossible. A bus or subway ticket cost so much more than I imagined. Even a small cup of coffee was like a luxury. My savings began to disappear, like sand slipping through my fingers. I realized I needed a job. After searching for weeks, I found a part-time job at a small diner. My shift started in the evening and often ended past midnight. I cleaned tables, washed dishes, and sometimes served food. At first, I thought it would be easy, but standing for hours made my legs heavy. My back hurt, and my hands smelled of soap and grease. I came home so tired that I often collapsed on the bed without eating dinner. One night, after finishing work at almost 1 a.m., I walked back to my room. The streets were dark and quiet. My footsteps echoed against the walls of tall buildings. Shadows stretched across the pavement. I held my bag tightly, my heart beating fast. In my town back home, nights were full of voices, neighbors talking, children laughing, radios playing. But here, the silence felt heavy, almost frightening. That night, something happened that changed me. I saw a man sitting on the cold sidewalk, wrapped in a torn blanket. His face looked tired, his eyes empty. He lifted his head and asked me softly, "Do you have $1?" "I am hungry," I froze. In my mind, America was perfect. How could someone be hungry here? I didn't have much money myself, but I reached into my pocket and gave him the coins I had left from my shift. He looked at me, smiled weakly, and whispered, "God bless you." That smile stayed in my mind for days. I started noticing more and more homeless people, some under bridges, some on benches, some talking to themselves in the cold. The city that looked like paradise now also showed me pain. Back home, life was full of people. Neighbors walked into our house without knocking. My cousins visited often. We shared meals, jokes, and festivals. But in New York, everyone seemed to live in their own world. People walked fast, looking at their phones. No one stopped to chat. No one smiled at strangers. At first, I tried greeting people in my building, but many just nodded quickly and walked away. Some didn't even respond. Nights were the hardest. I missed my mother's voice calling me to dinner, the smell of her cooking with spices filling the air. I missed my father's gentle advice, his calm presence. I missed my little brother's laughter when he teased me. One winter evening, I sat alone in my room, watching the city lights outside. Cars rushed by, people hurried across the streets, but I felt invisible. I realized you could live in a city of millions and still feel like the loneliest person in the world. In my town, I grew up dressing modestly and following traditions. Life was slower, family-centered, and community-driven. But here, life was open, fast, and independent. People spoke freely about topics we never discussed back home. Their clothes, their lifestyles, their ideas. Everything felt different. In university, I struggled to keep up. One day, the professor asked us to share our opinions on a topic. I spoke softly, carefully choosing my words. After class, a girl walked up to me and said, "You should speak louder. Be more confident. This is America." I smiled politely, but inside I thought, confidence is not about volume. Confidence is about knowing yourself. Still, I couldn't deny that I often felt like I didn't belong. The hardest time came when winter arrived. The cold was sharp and unforgiving. The wind felt like knives on my face. One morning, I woke up with a fever. My throat ached, my body felt heavy, and I couldn't even stand properly. I needed to see a doctor, but when I checked the cost, I was shocked. Without insurance, the fee was more than my entire week's salary. So I stayed in bed, drinking hot tea, eating instant noodles, and waiting for my body to heal. For 3 days, I lay there alone, shivering, weak, and scared. That was the moment I truly understood. America is not perfect. After I recovered from my fever, I decided to go outside and breathe some fresh air. It was a Sunday morning, and I walked slowly to Central Park. The trees were bare, their branches reaching up like tired arms. The air was cold but fresh, and children were playing in the distance. Couples walked hand in hand. Some laughed loudly, while others just enjoyed the silence of nature. I sat on a wooden bench, closed my eyes, and listened to the city around me. For the first time in weeks, I felt calm. I thought about my journey. I came to America believing it would be paradise, a place without sadness, without problems. Instead, I found reality: expensive rent, long working hours, loneliness, sickness, and people struggling on the streets. But at the same time, I realized something important. Reality is not always beautiful, but it is always honest. That day, I decided I would no longer live in the fantasy of perfect America. Instead, I would live in the truth of America, with its light and its darkness. One evening, when I was feeling especially lost, I remembered the folded letter my father had given me at the airport. I had kept it in my drawer, but never opened it. With trembling hands, I unfolded the paper. My father's handwriting was neat, written in blue ink. He wrote, "Dear Ava, life will not always be kind to you. You will face loneliness, confusion, and pain. But remember, you are stronger than you think. Home is always with you, in your heart, in your values, in your memories. Wherever you go, carry our love with you. It will never let you down. Love, Baba." Tears filled my eyes. I pressed the letter to my chest and whispered, "Thank you, Baba." That night, I realized something powerful. I was not as alone as I thought. My family's love crossed oceans and lived inside me. The months passed, and I began to see the city differently. I noticed how diverse New York was, how people from every culture lived side by side. I started talking to classmates, slowly opening up. At first, my English felt weak, but they encouraged me. Some became friends, inviting me to join study groups or share lunch. At the diner, I met coworkers from Mexico, Egypt, and the Philippines. We were all far from home, all working hard to survive. Sometimes during breaks, we shared our stories. A man from Mexico told me he hadn't seen his family in 5 years. A woman from Egypt said she was saving money to bring her younger brother to America. Listening to them, I realized I was not the only one struggling. Everyone carried invisible battles. One evening after my shift, I saw the same homeless man I had once helped. This time, he was playing an old guitar, singing softly. His voice was tired but full of emotion. People passed by quickly, not even looking at him. I stood there for a moment, listening. His song was about hope. Even though he had so little, he still carried hope. That night, as I walked home, I whispered to myself, "If he can carry hope, so can I." Winter was harsh, but it also taught me resilience. I learned how to layer my clothes, how to budget my money, how to save every coin. I discovered cheap grocery stores hidden in small neighborhoods where I could buy rice, beans, and vegetables. I learned to cook simple meals for myself. I also began writing in a small notebook every night. I wrote about my day, my feelings, my fears, and my dreams. Writing became my therapy. It was like talking to myself, reminding me of my strength. Slowly, I felt myself growing, not just as a student, but as a human being. When spring finally came, the city changed. Trees bloomed with pink and white flowers. The parks filled with laughter and music. Street performers danced, and food trucks filled the air with delicious smells. I also changed. I no longer looked at New York only through the eyes of a dreamer. I looked at it as a survivor. I had tasted both its beauty and its bitterness. One day, I walked to the same bench in Central Park where I had once sat feeling broken. This time, I felt stronger. I pulled out my notebook and wrote, "The dream is not about living in America. The dream is about living with courage, no matter where you are." Back home, my friends often messaged me. They asked, "Is America as perfect as they say? Do you live in luxury now?" At first, I didn't know how to answer. I didn't want to disappoint them. But then I remembered the lesson I had learned. Reality is honest. So I told them the truth. America has light, but it also has darkness. The dream is real, but so is the struggle. Don't expect magic. Expect challenges. Expect to work harder than ever before. But if you are strong, patient, and open-hearted, you will find your place here. Some were surprised, some were silent, but I knew my honesty mattered. With time, I found a balance. I studied hard in university, continued working at the diner, and saved every dollar I could. I also began exploring the city, not just as a dreamer, but as a learner. I visited museums, libraries, and cultural events. I learned about other people's histories and struggles. I discovered that America was not just a place of skyscrapers and money. It was also a place of stories. Immigrants, workers, artists, dreamers, all trying to build a life. Sometimes, when I stood in Times Square surrounded by flashing lights and thousands of people, I smiled. Not because I believed it was paradise, but because I had learned to see beyond the lights. Now, when I look back, I understand something deeply. I came to America searching for perfection. Instead, I found reality, hard, painful, but also powerful. I learned independence. I learned strength. I learned compassion for those who have less. I learned that happiness does not come from a country, a building, or a dream. Happiness comes from the courage to face life honestly, from the hope you carry inside you, and from the love that connects you to others, even across oceans. Today, when someone asks me, "Ava, is America as perfect as they say?" I smile and answer, "America is like any other place. It has light and it has shadows. The dream is real, but so is the struggle. The true dream is not about living in America. The true dream is about living with courage, hope, and an open heart, wherever you are." Thank for watching to Pro English Stories.